How's it going? Today I'm gonna rank every single Tier 7 aircraft that I have purchased and crewed. After spending some amount of time playing this godforsaken game, and only playing AirRB, which is what this list will be based off of, I'm only just beginning to understand how this game works, and I hope to pass that knowledge on to you to help inform your purchase decisions. If you're a fellow AirRB enjoyer that feels I've misranked any of my aircraft, you can frankly shove it up your ugly ass.
You heard us right, shove it up your ugly ass!
Because this is my video, but feel free to tell me about my lack of skill in the comments. Kicking it off with the good old Freedom Birds, we got the F-5E, a fun jet that will often surprise and frighten your enemy when they realize you're not an F-5C drone. It has all the performance and all the energy retention, but unfortunately falls short in weapon systems and features with only 2 AIM-9Js. I really do love this tiny nugget of a plane, but it's just not as meta as it used to be, and it lands at B tier for me. The F4E is a jet that's close to my heart. Seeing this plane dominate the sky on the History Channel's show Dogfights as a kid solidified it as my favorite airframe of all time. I mean, come on, nothing will ever look this good again. In game, this is a plane that at one point in time would have been S tier, but unfortunately that point in time was 2 years ago, and today it just doesn't have the edge that it used to. Pretty much everything at top tier has a pulse Doppler radar, all-aspect infrared missiles, or UFO-like turn performance, and this jet really has none of that. And it ends up being a big, sexy, subpar experience, landing it in C tier. Alright, so pretty much everything I just said about the F4E remains true for the F4J, except now we get a pulse Doppler radar, and it gets sexier. The F4J feels a bit fat. I don't really know how to describe it, but even compared to the F4E, it seems to lag behind in performance. No internal Vulcan means a heavy gun pod as well. As far as the improved radar goes, this is easily the most finicky pulse Doppler set I've used in-game, and have found it to be the least reliable to find its target and maintain a lock. This, along with the thick performance, keeps it solidly at B tier for me. I feel that someone could definitely make a fairly strong case that pound for pound the F8 platform is the best fighter in War Thunder. And I tend to agree. I really like this jet. It's got the power, the performance, the features, including the popular Jettison wing feature, and it's a full BR range below top tier, allowing for the occasional down tier. Except this particular F8, the F8E, is a slightly lesser model than its twin brother, the F8U, in my opinion. With the F8E, you trade your RWR for an IRST, infrared search and track radar system, and some optional radar-guided sidewinders, the AIM-9C. In AirRB, IRST on this jet is pretty much useless. The dish angles aren't as good as the regular radar for detecting faraway enemies, and you can't even fire your AIM-9C missiles off on an IRST lock. You have to use the regular radar anyway. Being without RWR in a radar missile meta, I find myself getting unknowingly locked up and slammed by pulse Doppler guided missiles more often than I'd like. For these reasons, along with the recent AIM-9D nerf, the US F8E is still excellent, but not quite the best, landing it in the respectable A tier. Yeah, alright, it's the best in pretty much every category at the moment, so S tier you go. The A-10A is steaming dookie in AirRB. It doesn't belong in AirRB, stop flying it in AirRB, it's annoying. Although I'll admit it does look cool, and its weapon set is ridiculous, so it's not quite F tier, I'll give it E tier. The A-7D is another jet that, at another point in time, could have been way higher on this list, but it's a shell of its former self than when it was added. It's since lost its airspawn, been up-tiered from 9.7 to 10.3, and is no longer able to carry its two 30mm Freedom cannons without taking a huge performance hit. You're still better off in this than the A-10, but not by much, landing it at D tier. Moving on to my singular German Rank 7 vehicle at the moment, the F-104G. This is the best version of the F-104 in my opinion, because it gets both decent missiles and flares, whereas most other models either only get one or neither of those. Yeah, the Italian F-104 ASA gets AIM-9Ls, but it's an F-104 at 11.3. I'm good on that one, Chief. The F-104 offers a start fast, stay fast playstyle that isn't for everyone, as it doesn't turn at all. Getting the AIM-9Js is definitely a pain, and it's practically useless in an up tier because everything else is more or less about as fast as you, negating your biggest advantage. It's a solid C tier for me. Along to the USSR, we're starting with an absolute banger, the MiG-21 SMT. In my current opinion, the SMT slightly beats out the FAU as the best pound-for-pound fighter in the game. This jet has it all. It fights in a class that can face things as low as 9.3, and with a strong engine performance and 4 R60s, it isn't guaranteed that you'll be raffle stomped in an up tier either. It's a joy to fly and absolutely an elite jet, earning it a spot in S tier. The MiG-21 BIS is what you get when you take the SMT and just make everything better. It's a little faster, has a little bit better performance, and gets a couple extra R60s, but at the end of the day, it's yet another case of would have been S tier some time ago, but not today. The Soviet BIS doesn't get all aspect R60Ms, just regular R60s. At 11.0, it faces all aspect missiles, pulse Doppler radars, and other jets that are just as fast. This specific MiG-21 used to be the king of ARB, but has since been phased out of the meta. After careful consideration, I feel it's a pretty soft A tier and a pretty solid B tier, so that's where it goes. The MiG-23M was an absolute dump truck when it was added a year ago. It flew like a boat and only had standard R60s. A few updates ago, this jet was given the snail's blessing and was buffed hard. 4 R60Ms to accompany your R23s, and maybe it's just me, but it felt like it flew a whole lot better since that update. It became an absolute clubbing machine for a little while, dishing surprise R60Ms straight to the face in a head-on, and an instant favorite of mine to fly after being one of my least favorite for so long. It looks weird on the page, but it feels right in my heart, and straight to A tier you go, my friend. The MiG-23 MLD is last season's Tomcat and is still absolutely at the cutting edge of the meta. The performance is a full step up from the previous M variant, and the weapons are dank as well. R-24Ts can lock an enemy from so far away they'll often be dead before they spot you or the baby ICBM cruising above Mach 3 headed straight for their plane. An easy pick for an S tier jet. Oh boy. The Su-17 M2 is such a joke, it's the only one on this list that I wish I could refund the 1.3 million SL I spent buying and crewing it and permanently erase it from my tech tree. This thing gets no top tier frills to match its 11.0 battle rating. It has no air spawn, no radar because a radar gun sight doesn't count, no fancy all aspect missiles, no chaff, and no flares. No flares at 11.0. This plane's only place in game currently is to be a missile magnet and die. That's all you can do. Everybody knows you're a flareless bitch and they will make you pay for it. Do not buy, do not fly, F tier plane. Also, not to mention, all other Su-17 and Su-22s in game have either flares or all aspect missiles or both, and are the same battle rating, so what's up with that? The MiG-27K is okay. That's really all I feel towards this plane. Its performance feels a bit toned down compared to a MiG-23, but it's really not the worst. 4 R60Ms are certainly nice to have, but that's about all there really is for this jet. This plane is like if you took the Su-17 and made it unshit. It's really just there for the tank players and is a middle-of-the-pack choice for ARB, landing it solidly at C tier. Moving along to China, we have the holy grail of ARB. The J-7E is my favorite plane to fly in War Thunder right now. Its performance is absolutely mind-boggling and is nothing short of a UFO. You will catch every Tomcat fanboy in the energy trap of their life in this jet. It seems to me that when I fly the J-7E, nobody really knows how to fight it. They assume it's just another MiG-21 and absolutely shit their pants when it retains its speed in a turn. The PL-5 missile is also my pick for the best missile in-game at the moment. It's like if an R-13 and a Matra Magic got busy and made a missile that has all the range plus all the turn. The J-7E made the entire grind for the Chinese tech tree worth it alone, in my opinion, and is an easy S-tier jet. Alright, so the J-8B is like if you took the front third of a MiG-23, the middle third of a MiG-21, and the aft third of a MiG-19 and glued them all together, and I love it. It's very similar in playstyle to the J-7E, although to be honest, it just doesn't quite feel as nimble. The Aspide missiles are fantastic. The radar, however, is not. Without Pulse Doppler at top tier, it's hard to be competitive in the radar missile department. It can still carry the good old PL5 missiles, so in my book, the Aspides end up being more of a bonus on the J8B than a main feature. This jet is not just good, it's great, but the slight feel of performance loss compared to the J7E keeps it from being one of the best, making it a solid A-tier jet. And finally, we have Sweden, specifically the JA-37C Viggen. It's got a great set of missiles and an outstanding pulse Doppler radar. The Viggen can keep anything you point at it locked up through all kinds of weird angles and velocities. The performance is excellent, although the giant delta wing will bleed all of your speed in 1 or 2 turns, and the afterburner could outdrink Wade Boggs under the table, making full fuel a must. Placing this jet took more consideration than others, as this jet is very competitive in the current meta, but with the speed bleed and the heavy gas load, it isn't quite on the cutting edge. For me, it's a soft S tier, but a solid A tier, which is where it lands on my list. Oh, it's a Viggen at 10.3. Must be good, right? Well, 10.3 means that while you might get the occasional down tier, I find myself getting a full up tier almost every game. In the AJ-37, you get to make the harrowing choice of missiles or flares. That's right, one or the other. No matter which one I pick, it always seems like the wrong one. The AJ-37 feels like a Hornet with its stinger removed. It's all buzz and no bite, and an absolute pain to fly in ARB in my experience, although the flight performance keeps it from being completely useless, landing at a spot in E tier. Skill issue? Maybe. Let me know what you think. Last but certainly not least, we have the J-35D Draken. This is yet another plane that suffers from used to be S tier syndrome, but here we are a few years later, and the meta has left my boy hanging. The Draken was my first 3rd gen fighter back when the F-4C and the MiG-21 F-13 were the competitors, and I thought it was the coolest plane in the game, and it's still one of my favorites. Now sitting at the unusual BR of 10.7, it will be up tiered to face pulse Doppler and all aspect missiles nearly every game, and it doesn't have an RWR or countermeasures. Planes that I see as at least equal to the Draken in terms of performance and weapons, such as the MiG-21 SMT, MiG-21 MF, and F-8U, all sit at a lower battle rating, and they all have RWR and flares. This plane won't go down in BR because nobody really plays it anymore, so it's forced to live in the background for the foreseeable future. With survivability at a minimum and no advanced weapons to speak of, the J-35D takes its place a few ranks below the best at B tier. Honestly, could even be C tier now, but I personally love it and I can't bring myself to put it any lower. So yeah, that's all my rank 7 aircraft. Let me know how you feel about my list, if I have a skill issue or if I got it right. I'll see you later. Bye.